ECU?
Do you bleed purple and gold?
Are you ready to hoist the colors?
Hoist the colors!
It's time for the most in-depth look into the world of ECU athletics. Welcome to Hoist the Colors with your host, Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game.
Watch the show live on Facebook
and at 943thegame.com. Here's Stephen Igo.
It's a reaction Monday. East Carolina shuts out Coastal Carolina 38-0 in Conway. Pirate fans take over Brooks Stadium. Purple and gold chants throughout the second half, especially in the fourth quarter. ECU wins it. They improved to 2-1 on the season, setting up a big game against BYU later this week inside Dowdy-Ficklen Stadium. We'll get into that and a whole lot more later in the week. Today, we're mainly reacting to ECU's win over Coastal Carolina. Philip Pilkington is producing. He's fresh off a wedding weekend, but he did catch some of the game. Pirates win it 38-0. I think we all thought that there was a chance ECU could go in there and really impose its will. At halftime of the game, it felt like it was one of those classic, man, we're letting them hang around, this isn't going to end well type feelings that we've seen so many times from ECU football, especially on the road, especially against what seemed to be an inferior team. But credit Blake Carroll, his coaching staff, the entire team for coming out, laying the hammer in the second half. The pass rush was outstanding because the run defense was so good. Set up Coastal in the third and long so many times. Pirates really got after him. 6 sacks, 5 turnovers forced, a couple of strip sacks, a couple of interceptions. Julian Davis had a great play to just rip the ball out of Tad Hudson, Coastal Carolina's quarterback's hands at one point as well. So 5 turnovers forced. Anthony Smith was excellent at receiver. The running game finishes with more than 200 yards. We'll get into that. Still some choppiness there, but improvement, especially in the second half. Just, man, 38-0. As always, we're live on YouTube, Facebook, and X. The comments section's open. We always react to your questions, comments, concerns. Drop them in the chat. We'll get to them throughout the show. Download the show on the IBX Media app as well as Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you miss any of it live. Check out hoistthecolors.net for all of our coverage as well there for our members. Philip Pilkington, how was your wedding weekend, and did you get a chance to soak in this Pirate victory at all?
We got to a little bit. Obviously, everybody was kind of keeping up with the game. The wedding was really good. Reception was good. Food was good. So all that, everything went well. Bride and groom were really happy. Their parents were happy. So I thought that was solid. As for the game, I got to see the last 7 or 8 minutes, maybe. I think it was live. We got back to my house, and we turned it on. Not going to lie, we had that on and the NASCAR race, and the fact that ECU was already up by 30. I may or may not have been paying a little more attention to the race, but I was able to get back and watch the first half and quickly this morning before I headed over to the press conference. So I've gotten to take in some of it, obviously not as much as I would have wanted to. It's such a big victory. But also, I guess if you're going to miss a game, miss one where it's 38-0 and it doesn't come down to 1 or 2 plays defining the football game. A game I don't want to say dominated start to finish, right? It was, I think the first half was not as dominant as the second half. I'm not saying that East Carolina wasn't the better football team, but just kind of looking at it, I think that was probably the worst half of football they have played since the first half against NC State, and they still were up 10-0, right? And I think maybe there was a few things, especially offensively, and some throws Caton made where maybe the offense looked a little comfortable, in my opinion, and maybe too comfortable. And I think it was a great humbling half for them where they made mistakes, but they weren't glaring mistakes that cost you a football game. And a lot of those mistakes came on 1st and 10, right? Hey, let's push the ball down the field here, and maybe, they try to put the ball in a window that it wasn't supposed to be in or whatever, but it was one of those where you looked like a very good football team because you were to go out there, be a little gutsy, maybe not play to your fullest potential, but still be clearly the better football team, and I think that a lot has got to be said for that.
East Carolina has outscored its opponents 59-7 in the second half this season through 3 games, which is a pretty impressive number. Obviously, Campbell's mixed in there, but you still have done that on the road to NC State and to Coastal Carolina. And look, for those who were at the game, Coastal was very up for the game. Their fans were into it. It was a packed house. Now they were all mostly gone by halftime, again, as the East Carolina fans took over the stadium. But I thought, man, like late in the second half, part of it was assuredly the score, but the holes opened offensively in the second half because ECU was on the field. They won the time of possession with a hurry-up offense, which isn't going to happen a lot, but they ran 20 more plays than Coastal. They wore them down, and it really reminded me of last year's running game where early in the contest it was more of the 3 to 5 yard runs, and then late in the game you're popping off the 5, 10, 15. I don't think there was a single run over 20, but there were in that fourth quarter there were multiple in the 15 to 18 range. And so it was just good to see that. And we saw Mike Wright get in, which was great to see. You saw his explosiveness. And we had a unique angle of the game because we weren't in the press box. The press box has been given, I guess, to suites, to fans. They're turning them into suites. I get it. They're trying to make money, etc. But we did have a good – you can really see what's happening in the run game when you're sitting behind the play because you can see the holes open. You can see are the backs missing cuts, are their guys unblocked. And I really thought it was a combination. It's not as bad as it looks. Yeah, they got beat on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1. They got pushed back. There's no doubt about that in those instances. But on your traditional first, second down runs where you're getting 2-3 yards, there is more there in the running game. Sometimes it's on the back. Sometimes it's on the offensive lineman, not getting to the second level, not getting a hat on a hat in a unique defensive scheme. But I'm just telling folks, like, ECU sticking with the run because they have potential to run the ball. It's not like they're just getting beat at the point of attack. Now, that may change against BYU, but it's just choppy right now. There's a lot of moving parts, and it's going to take some time to work out the kinks. But that's why they're sticking with it. And you don't want to be one-dimensional, Philip. We talked about it. I know this team can throw the ball. If this team wants to compete for a conference championship, be at their best by the end of the season, they're going to have to consistently run the ball. And I think that's why we're seeing them stick with it despite the ups and downs.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the game, right? If you go out there and just don't run, you're admitting that you're one-dimensional. And I'm not saying this football team is by any means one-dimensional, but you're then doing it to yourself. You're not forcing the defense to do it to you. And, to your point, these runs are at least setting up late-game runs. And also, they're not negative plays. Yes, would we rather get 4 to 5? Absolutely. 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5 looks a lot better than 2nd and 7, 2nd and 8. But you're not losing the point of attack, I think. That's the key thing. If running backs are being met in the backfield and there's nothing they can do unless their name's Barry Sanders, you've got an issue. If you're not getting to the next level as well as you want to, or the backs are missing holes, you've got a minor problem. And there's a difference in a minor problem and an issue. And I think what it is it's just not as complete of a run game as you want it to be. It's not as complete of a run game as it's going to be in 1 month or in 3 months when the season comes to an end. And there are going to be things in any single football season for every single team in the country that you feel like out of the gate you don't do as well as you want to the first third of the season or the first quarter of the season. And I think this is what it is for East Carolina right now. Not saying they're perfect everywhere else, but the point is it's not great, but again, it's not hurting you. It's not costing you football games. And that allows you to continue to beat on that craft and work on it more and more during the game because it's not putting you in situations that are going to cause you to lose. It's just going to cost you to have to be a little better in other places. But, hey, you got to be good at throwing the football when you have to throw the football because there's going to be a late-game scenario where you're going to have to drive down the field anyways.
East Carolina wins at 38-0 over Coastal Carolina. So we're getting a lot of comments. We'll get to those here in a minute. Kenny Curlin saying vision. I think he's pointing out the running backs need better vision. I agree. There are times they have missed cuts or have not bounced it out, which look, I will say that, I just think as I watch the run game, it's one of those things where I think the backs are talented. I still don't know if you have a clear-cut number one back, but I feel like there's a whole lot more there with the vision. And also the way ECU practiced in the preseason, I don't think they did as much live tackling. Now, they did some inside run, all that sort of stuff, but you've got backs who haven't really played in this offense outside of Marlon Gunn and London Montgomery a little bit towards the end of last year, so they're still getting comfortable. And if you're not seeing live bullets all offseason for a in-depth amount of time, then it's just going to take time into the season to really learn on the fly. So we're seeing that. I do expect it to improve throughout the year. Again, BYU will be tough, but you still can't go sit there and throw the ball 60 times or they're going to eat you alive with their pass rush because they are good in the trenches running and stopping the pass with their pass rush. All right, Anthony Smith had a huge game. He had 14 targets. 2 of those were down the field where he got behind the defense. And Caden Hauser was a little short on the throws, but still, he had 14 targets, 11 catches, which is a career high. He also had 136 yards, which is a career high. He had 80 yards after the catch per Pro Football Focus, so 80 of his 136 yards after the catch. And this just, again, goes back to all we heard when he came from NC State was, hey, he can run the deep ball. That's about all he can do. He may or may not catch it. He certainly isn't going to be a guy who can work the underneath routes. He said after the, as my Siri goes off, he certainly showed on Saturday that he can catch the short routes and make guys miss. He forced 3 missed tackles and racked up yards after the catch. So I just, at this point, Philip, I don't want to say he's like a number 1 all-conference receiver as far as like the best receiver in the conference, but I mean, he's the number 1 for ECU for a reason. He can work underneath. He can go across the middle and catch it. He can make guys miss. And he can do the deep ball, which we still haven't seen, and it's coming.
Yeah, it's that he's a complete receiver, right? You trust him with any route on the route tree. You trust him in different situations, right? You know, this is a guy who also, he's not the biggest dude on the field. And, yes, we had heard that his skill set didn't fit the underneath stuff, but also we were worried about his size, worried about him getting hurt, worried about him being tackled by linebackers. Well, knock on wood, to this point, that hasn't been an issue. You mentioned he can do the deep ball. He's a solid jump ball receiver as well. This is a young man who you feel like you can line up at all 3 spots. He's got a really good football IQ. We've not spent a lot of time with Anthony, but we've, spent sporadic time with him, and you can just tell this kid is a winner. He wants to go out there. He wants to play football. He wants to win football games. He's going to do whatever it takes, and not just whatever it takes on game day, but whatever it takes at practice. And he's even admitted to having to work on some of this stuff away from the practice field on his own, and he's determined. And look, I am ready to go down the stretch of this season with him being the guy. I think, like you said, he might not be the best player in the conference, but he is good enough to be a true number 1 in this league, and for Caden Hauser to have a go-to guy down the stretch in games and down the stretch during the season when you need to win a big game.
Kenny Curlings says Smith showed up. Yes, Yannick Smith with 2 touchdown catches. It's kind of more the role I thought he would have in the red zone in this game. He beat a guy inside on a slant, and then I like that later in the game, obviously faked the slant with inside leverage and then cut outside with the fade ball there. Caden threw a dime on that one for the last touchdown. So Yannick only 4 catches for 25 yards, but 2 big scores. It would have been a good fantasy day if you got him in fantasy college football. With that, Brock Spalding, all he does, Phillip, all Brock Spalding does is catch every pass thrown to him. 4 targets, 4 catches, 43 yards. On the season, 13 targets, 13 catches, 221 yards, 17 yards per catch. I would say like that's peak efficiency right there.
That is, and you need guys like that because that's where, hey, man, it's 3rd and 4. Who's the ball going to? Who do we trust? Who's got great timing with the quarterback? And he's that guy. And in every offense, I think, needs that guy. And look, and another thing is we've mentioned it, and we mentioned it last week, that is he more of a slot body? Sure. But he can line up on the outside, and he can run different parts of the route tree as well. So I think he's definitely got his specialty, which is the slot. His specialty is shorter routes, things over the middle of the field. But it's not so much that he is unable to do those other things where defenses can prepare for him to only be one style of wide receiver, even though he does have his strengths and he has his, I don't even want to call them weaknesses because, like you said, he's 13 for 13. I would say his things he's not as good at. Look, man, this receiving core is really coming together. And, you mentioned the Smiths. You mentioned Brock. But once again the other night, guys down the depth chart, getting in the game, guys down the depth chart, making catches, blocking downfield. I think there was a big play late. Was it Peyton Mangrum that had like a huge block on a play late? I mean, these guys are all around football players, not just wide receivers.
Peyton Mangrum, he also had he dropped. I don't want to even say he dropped it, but he didn't complete the catch on one, and then he came back. Caden went right back to him, had a huge catch on third down. So, that's the thing. You're seeing everybody contribute. We talked to Mike Wright earlier, and he was talking about how just everybody is focused on the team goal. Like, all the individual outside stuff doesn't matter. We're just like, what is it going to take to win? What is our job? We're going to get that done. So, Pirate Nation, expecting a big crowd at South BYU again. We'll get more into that as the week unfolds. We'll continue on. We'll take an in-depth look at the defense on the other side. A shutout. It's just hard to shut out teams in college football these days. ECU does it for the first time against an FBS opponent and the first time on the road since Duke in 2000, which, by the way, was also 38-0. And we'll get more into that, some highlights from the defense, plenty of your comments we got to get to as well, so keep dropping those. We'll keep reacting throughout the show. This is Hoist the Colors on a Reaction Monday.
The team of Flatlands Jessup is working overtime to help ensure that Eastern North Carolinians like you get the health insurance help you need this open enrollment period. New legislation passed, meaning more people than ever qualify for affordable coverage. Let us help you today.
Big tax credits are back. Get a 30% tax credit, up to $2,000 off your new Mitsubishi electric heat pump install. Let Comfort Master help you take advantage of the tax credits with a qualifying Mitsubishi electric ducted heat pump or non-ducted Mitsubishi electric mini splits. Mitsubishi electric mini splits are ideal for bonus rooms, garages, or sunrooms. If you need a new HVAC unit, call Comfort Master today.
Call Comfort Master. Call Comfort Master.
You know what the problem is with standard belts? Usually you have to choose between too tight or the opposite, too loose. But with Anson Belt and Buckle, you don't have to choose. We got rid of the holes and instead have a track system designed for micro-adjustability. That way you can enjoy a perfect fit every time. Anson Belt and Buckle. Find your perfect fit today.
Healthwise Pharmacy rounds the bases with all of your infusion, retail, compounding, and medical equipment needs. Locally owned and operated by pharmacist Marcy Parker, Healthwise has grown to be your most trusted provider for infusion services. Currently providing in-home or on-site infusions in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. Visit Healthwise Pharmacy at 615B South Memorial Drive or call 252-295-0059 to speak to a patient service representative to find the option that best suits your needs.
Tired of the 1-800 numbers advertising Medicare products? Flatlands Jessup has 6 offices all throughout Eastern North Carolina. Get face-to-face help from our local award-winning licensed team. Stop by today. Flatlands Jessup, your whole world covered.
The best burgers around. Everyone loves a thick, juicy, and fresh burger. Tiebreakers does real burgers better than anybody. And don't forget about the cheese sticks, fresh salads, and more. So don't just go to any burger-themed restaurant chain. It's time to break the chain and eat local. Tiebreakers, burgers and sports at its best.
Go Pirates! Arg!
In this age of globalization, we've learned that bigger isn't always better. Ever tried to get phone help from a big corporation from a real person? Right. That's what's so nice about Phelps Chevrolet. After more than 50 years serving our community, Phelps remains family-owned and operated. Mike, Daryl, Wave, West, Alan, and Clay deliver hometown service and integrity, same as always. They share your experience, they share your values, and they are ready to help with any motoring need. Come get you one.
The Pirates play here.
Time to play the game!
This is Hoist the Colors with Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game.
All right, welcome back in. Hoist the Colors. Philip Pilkington producing. Stephen Igo here. We were lamenting our NFL teams during the break. We've got all week for that, as there is a comment about the Colts in the chat. Shores44 says, "This is our Colts. This is our team. We bleed blue." Yeah. Congrats on your victory. Daniel Jones looks great, I will say that. And the Broncos gifted him that one. I hope they cut the guy who committed that penalty. I can't get into it. It frustrates me so much. All right, let's get back into ECU. We'll talk NFL. We got Case and Romeli coming on tomorrow, so we'll talk Panthers and NFL tomorrow. How about that?
Sounds good.
All right, defense. This defense, I mean, it's so funny, Philip. We talk all offseason, man, this defense. We saw it in practice. We're like, man, this defense might give up 35 points a game.
Dude, the spring was, we can just can't say it. Like, I'm not even sure. The spring was ugly.
It was. There were dudes just running behind the defense. Caden was throwing, it wasn't even Caden throwing bombs. It was Jake Garcia. It was Chaston Ditta.
Dude, John David Black was out there shredding our starting
was
defense.
Shredding it. I mean, so like the growth the defense has made from that point to now is astounding. You have to credit the coaches. Josh Aldridge obviously doing a great job. I think Blake Carroll is a lot more involved in this defense. I think it became that way during preseason camp. I'm not saying he's calling the plays, but I just think he is not the D coordinator, but he's been on it, and I think that's a big reason for it as well. You've got two really smart defensive minds there. Josh Aldridge, extremely bright, and with Blake, you got two sharp defensive minds, I think, that are working together. Kenny Curlin says he called the shutout. He did, and congrats, Kenny. That was big time, man.
I think I even made fun of him, so I think I owe Kenny an apology, if I remember correctly.
I always laugh at the big, like, our team's going to win 45-3 or something like that. Well, like, it actually happened. And it could have been 60-0 if ECU would have played, like, even to close to their ceiling. So, look, Coastal's bad, but at the end of the day, like, I'm kind of over the whole, let's just talk about how bad the other team is. You still won 38-0. You didn't play well. Like that says a lot about ECU as well. Anyways, defensively, we talked about it in the preseason. The pass rush, we felt like this team could rush the passer. And we saw it, man. Like, it wasn't even – they blitzed at times, Philip, but, like, they just lined up four-man rush and won, which is a big difference compared to what we've seen in the past.
They did. I think they had really great pad level, even on passing, which is something you don't really talk about a lot when it comes to passing. But they did a good job of, obviously offensive linemen stand up straighter when they're pass blocking, but they just kind of bull rush. They got underneath the pads of the offensive linemen, pushed them back, and then once they had gotten – that initial push, they were able to quickly shred and sidestep and just beat the guys. So they were beating them with a combination of a power rush followed by their quickness and their feet. And, I think it led to rushed throws. That obviously resulted in turnovers. It led to a few times on some third and long situations like what Blake talked about where they just had to throw the ball to a guy who was running a shorter breaking route, maybe a guy who was supposed to be a check down, but the deeper routes, the primary routes for these third and long plays had not yet developed yet. And it was just causing them to throw those underneath plays, which can be a bad thing if you don't tackle well. Guess what? We tackled a heck of a lot better this week, too. It's definitely the best tackling performance East Carolina has had this season.
Just 6 missed tackles.
Yeah, you combine those two things together, you're probably going to be victorious. And sure enough, was the defense perfect? No, but according to the scoreboard, they were.
Yeah, anytime you shut a team out, it's basically perfect. I will say there were some penalties that went in ECU's direction. One that was crucial was right coming out of the second half. It was 10-0. Coastal had the ball. They hit a huge pass play. Great ball from Tad Hudson, who, by the way, I thought looked a lot better than what a stat line indicated. Either way, called back because Raheem Craig beat a guy inside and the guard just tackled him to the ground. So it was a legit penalty. But that was a play that if it's not called, that could swing the game. There was also another play later in the game. Tad Hudson hit a guy on the right sideline. That was called back due to offensive pass interference because the slot receiver thought it was a run play. He was out there blocking a defensive back 15 yards down the field and turned around when the ball was thrown and was just like, what are we doing? So Coastal's got some issues, but credit ECU for taking advantage. Kieran Davis had 6 pressures. According to Pro Football Focus, had a strip sack. J.D. Lampley, Zion Wilson had 4 pressures apiece. Josiah Robinson had a sack, 3 pressures. Interior guys, Ryan Roseborough and Preston Carr had a couple pressures as well. ECU individually racked up 32 pressures. 7 players were in on sacks. Also had 5 quarterback hits, 20 quarterback hurries. Coastal was pressured on 25 of their 48 dropbacks. So more than half of the time, Tad Hudson was under pressure. So tremendous growth there. I thought Tymir Brown, we talked to him today as well, played his best game at corner. Rasheed Reason missed some practice time due to a funeral back home in California. He came in the second half, had a pick as well, so the corners played better. But we're seeing a lot of these defensive players. What impresses me most is, we make such a big deal about the transfers, and rightfully so, but Kieran Davis, third-year guy, 3-star recruit, red shirts, develops last year as a redshirt freshman. Now he's one of your better pass rushers. Zion Wilson came into the program as a walk-on, develops. Now he's starting to D-tackle. Josiah Robinson originally came in as a transfer from Michigan State 3-4 years ago. He's developed in your program. Preston Carr, Sam Danka, Julian Davis, another guy who's a redshirt sophomore. So we make a big deal about these transfers. Jamarly Riddle, second-year sophomore. Aiden Duncanson's a guy who's developed in ECU's program. I know he started at North Carolina, but transferred in, second-year guy to ECU, developing. So I'm just pointing out a lot of these guys, Philip, we're seeing they've been in this defense. They've kind of been waiting for their turn. And to me, that shows good coaching, good development, that these guys are now kind of no-name guys to people who don't follow recruiting, but they're making plays and look like seasoned vets out there at times.
They do, and it speaks to the culture that is being put down by this coaching staff. Right nowadays, East Carolina's going to lose guys for two reasons. A, they can go somewhere and make more money. Not the case with the guys we're talking about right now. And B, hey, I'm not getting enough playing time, so I'm immediately going to leave. Well, when you develop talent and the young man feels like he is being developed and he is in a place where the culture and the brotherhood is there's a lot less chance of him leaving because he knows his opportunity is coming as long as he buys into what's going on. The coaches are buying into the student athletes. The student athletes are buying into the program. And we talked to Mike Wright today, and I know he is a transfer, but it was something that he said at Media Day. It's something that he said here again today was why he loves ECU is because everybody wants to win. The community wants to win. The guys at the top of the depth chart and the guys at the bottom of the depth chart want to win the same. The people he even mentioned during media days, remember, the custodial staff wants us to win. Because sometimes they're just cleaning, but here they want us to win. And so the point is, when you're a young man and you come into this program and a coach looks you in the eye and says, you know what? You're not good enough to start right now, but I'm going to make sure you're good enough one day to start right here in a Pirate uniform. And these young men are buying into that. And now they're starting. And again, like I said, there were some of these guys we said at the beginning of the year where they were like, they're good players, but we haven't seen them play in a college football game. Maybe they go out there and the moment's too big. Maybe the game's too fast. Who knows? Well, to this point, all those guys you just mentioned that we had question marks about, not a lot of questions floating around anymore. We've got a lot of answers through 3 weeks.
I think it's also a benefit to Blake Harrell keeping most of his defensive staff in place. So, like, those guys, they know what type of players they recruited. They know where they fit best, and so like you're able to get the most out of them because they came in with their position coaches. They've been repping and practice with their position coaches. You have that belief system, so all that's playing a role right now. Hunter Corbett says shout out to Roy Tesh as well. Yes, Roy Tesh is. Look, I'm not gonna lie, he might be the most underappreciated coach in America. Like I think Roy Tesh, like what he's done with the defensive front. It's honestly amazing because so many people had questions about it, and he just keeps churning guys out. It doesn't matter who you send him, Philip. We could, me and you could go over there and we might become pretty good defensive linemen. Is that stretching it?
We're a little small for that.
Yeah. Put us at DN. We can try to figure out something.
Yeah, but no. Well, here's the thing: he would give us the tools to.
Yeah.
We don't know anything about playing D-line, but if the only thing that'd be holding us back if we got coached by Roy Tesh would be our 5'9". You're a little taller than me. Are you 5'10"?
Probably 5'10"-ish, 5'11"-ish. Yeah, definitely not 6 feet.
Yeah, and our lack of broadness in our shoulders and lack of being able to squat 5 bills. That'd be the only thing holding us back because we would know where to go. And we would play to the best of our ability because of Roy Tesh. I can tell you that.
No doubt about that. All right, couple things here. When you brought up the custodial staff, it reminded me we were on the field doing the post-game interviews. One of the Coastal Carolina concession people came out onto the field and was like, "Who won? What was the score?" And we told him 38-0. And I'll never forget the look on his face. He was just like, "Are you serious?" And then he just walked back, got all depressed. Because obviously those people are working the whole game. They're giving out free concessions. They don't have time to be checking the score. And he was just shocked that ECU came in there, won 38-0. He was like, "Man, you got to be kidding me. They need to fire this coach," is what he said. And then he walked off. So that was funny. Kenny Curlin says, thoughts on the bright scoreboard when they kick. All right, so I want to get your take on this, Philip.
All right.
Because I doubt you saw this. Because obviously you weren't at the game, you were in a wedding. So the scoreboard, their scoreboard is like right in front of the field goal post.
Yeah.
And it's like directly in front. So when ECU, Nick Maisie, is setting up for the field goal that was blocked, they basically make it as bright and just a giant glare as possible, and there's 2 little chicken heads on the corners. Like they're basically trying to distract the kicker.
Yeah.
But it feels illegal to me that it's like right in his sight, and it's like it's blinding. Like I'm not lying to you when I say it's blinding. Like it may have played a role in ECU getting a field goal block there.
Yeah, I think, look, fans are supposed to do whatever they can. It is the marketing team or whoever runs its job to make sure the fans participate. But if pumping in crowd noise is illegal, which, teams have gotten in trouble for in the past more at the NFL level than the college level, there's got to be some sort of regulation set for what's on the video board. Also, the video board should probably not be
it's
directly
a
behind.
location.
Now, the unfortunate thing is if you make that rule for one, you got to make it for all with a video board. And there are a lot of probably FCS and D2 programs that probably have just like really crappy video boards that they don't have, that don't set up very high, right? And they're right behind the scoreboard or behind the field goal post, and it's probably not an issue. So I understand they're not making a universal rule on that, but level of brightness, and I'm sure there's some way to measure level of brightness. I know you can measure sound in decibels. I don't even know what brightness is, but there's got to be some sort of regulation.
Whatever the regulation is, if there's any on scoreboard brightness, I guarantee you it's broken. It's like the most glaring brightness scoreboard I've ever seen. Like I was in the opposite end zone, so I was looking directly at it too, and it hurt my eyes. So I know it hurt ECU's. Terry Long says the reason why it was blocked is because our splits are too tight on field goal. Well, I don't know if that was the reason, but ECU did. So the left or the right protection guy, according to Blake Harrell, got stepped on. So maybe their splits are too tight. If you're stepping on them, I mean
on each other,
that may need to be looked at. But either way, that can't happen. I wrote in the post game it was unacceptable. Even in a 38-0 loss, you cannot afford to be getting 20-yard field goals blocked that cleanly. I mean, it was
off the edge like that. Yeah. No, it's one thing when you have to kick a low line driver from 50 and some kid, jumps up and, jumps 12 feet in the air and blocks it. Like it is what it is. So I've never been to Coastal, like for a game.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the scoreboard being bright, and I'm not disagreeing with you. Does it even seem brighter because it seems like their stadium is not that lit? Like it seems a little dark. Anytime I watch it on TV, and I don't know if this is just like bad cameras.
I think it's the bad cameras.
Okay.
I think it's the teal turf and the bad cameras.
Okay. Mixed with just like the black helmets and the dark uniforms.
Because I will say, watching it live, I felt like it was plenty bright.
Okay. Because I've always thought anytime I watch a night game there, I don't see as much in the day games, but also you got natural sunlight. That it always seems kind of just dull there, but like you said, it may just be JV cameras.
I think it is the cameras, and I think it's the combination of it being a night game with teal on teal. And like you said, the black end zones now and the black helmet. It just we had the TV feed up in the press box, or I can't even call it the press box, the field house. And it was dark on TV, but then like you would look on the field and it was like bright. So the lights are actually bright there. It's just I think it is the combination of the colors and the broadcast is pitiful.
Gotcha. Did so since you guys were in the field house, were there showers in the bathrooms so you could get a post game shower? And did you have a little locker to put your stuff in?
We could have done that because the field house is actually pretty nice. We were on the third level above the weight room, but I'm sure they had showers down there. It was similar setup to Liberty, but the fact was Liberty, we actually had a press box to sit in this room. And I will say the Coastal Media Relations staff, first class, they were like, "Look, I'm sorry that you guys are up here. Like we're doing everything we can." And they did a great job, so I don't put any blame on them. But it was different. I'll just say that.
Well, you said the same thing kind of about the regional, right? Like it wasn't the best setup, but the way you guys were treated by the staff was very good. And
they do. They're good over there. So I have no problem with the Coastal Media Relations staff. I have a problem with them moving the media to the field house. But it is what it is.
I even remember when they came here for a regional a couple of years ago, and like we beat them in the regional. Just they were very class act. I feel like their staff did a good job. Obviously, Gary Gilmore was great, but I don't know. I know like ECU's kind of developed like kind of a rivalry with Coastal to an extent, which I think is good. But I will say there are certain teams that are no longer in this conference. One in particular from the Sunshine State that it always seemed their staff was
UCF.
Not the best to deal with. Coastals, I really enjoy dealing with.
All right, Kenny adding, we got to get a break in, but not the best production by far. John Moody says, I feel like they are lacking 2 light poles up in the stands. It felt very dark, like I was at a high school. I will say I did look up in the stands in the upper deck, and I couldn't tell at a time who was wearing purple and who was wearing teal. I had to squint. So, yeah, it is dark up there, but the field was well lit for sure. All right, let's get a break in. We'll continue to get to more of your comments. Got some comments on the running game and some more stuff as well we'll get to. This is Hoist the Colors.
Storm season is approaching. North Carolina weather can damage your roof, and before long, a small leak can turn into a big problem. Your home is one of your biggest investments, so protect it with Wells Home Improvements.
We work with all insurance companies for a hassle-free roof installation experience. Call us today and get 10% off your roof installation when you mention this commercial.
252-227-8403 or visit us online at wellshomeimprovements.com. Wells Home Improvements. Local, honest, dependable.
This is about you, your family, and the health of all who live in Eastern North Carolina. This is about the transformation of a health system into something more powerful and more human. About creating new ways to treat disease and keep you well. This is about ECU Health, which is to say, it's really all about you. ECU Health. Minds, hearts, purpose.
You have a choice when you invest in insurance, and when you choose First State Insurance Advisors, you're working with people you can trust. Clark Stallings has deep ties in the community. His team, including Keaton Smith, Regina Asby, Phil Leva, Max Joyner Jr., Max Joyner III, and Ginger Smith, provides knowledgeable and professional advice. First State Insurance Advisors is an independent insurance agency. They offer all types of personal insurance as well as various types for business. Call or email First State Insurance Advisors today. We want to be your trusted choice agency.
Acre Station Meat Farm, along with Lane Angus Beef, bring you Farm to Fork Beef.
Stock your freezers now with affordable beef boxes just in time for the grilling season.
Farm to Fork Beef brings quality local beef to your family. From your traditional butcher shop, Acre Station Meat Farm. Come on down to Acre Station Meat Farm and find out why we're #1 in fresh cuts and friendly service.
Acre Station Meat Farm, Highway 32 North, Pinetown. At National Finance, we're all about hometown support, just like ECU football. National Finance helps us win on and off the field. They've got your back when you need it most. Fast, easy personal loans for life's big plays. And just like us, they're committed to Eastern North Carolina. National Finance, proud supporters of ECU athletics. Visit nfcmoney.com for loans as fast as today.
Monday, ECU crushes Coastal 38-0. Pirates are 2-1. We're reacting to that. Philip Pilkington here. Let's get to as many of these comments as we can. I'm always enjoying the array of comments. One of which is, Igo, have you heard anything about John Gruden heading to Blacksburg? By the way, shout out Virginia Tech. Whit Babcock, ever since he canceled that series against ECU, their program has largely gone into the toilet. So karma is real. I just wanted to mention that. Maybe if Whit Babcock gets fired, ECU can get Virginia Tech back on the schedule. Anyways, bold take from Jonathan. He says, not to say there aren't specific areas of concern, but I believe this is the most complete ECU football team we've seen in over a decade. Offense, solid. Defense, solid. Special teams, solid. Most years we are lacking on one particular side of the ball and suffer the heartbreak. Well, I think ECU is potentially trending in that direction, Jonathan. I think we learn if that is indeed potentially the truth this Saturday. These next 3 games are tough. BYU, which ECU I think around a touchdown dog at last check. Army, which, by the way, is coming off a bye week. There's some discussion in the chat about that. BYU and Army having bye weeks early in the season before playing ECU. And then at Tulane. Tulane looks really good. And they play at Ole Miss this weekend. So, Philip, I think I'm not saying these next 3 games are going to make or break ECU's season. I guess it could, and if you're in terms of hosting or potentially competing for a conference championship, but we'll know like how good this ECU team is in pretty short order.
We will, and to Jonathan's point where he says he feels like it's the most complete ECU team in a while, I agree with him. The tough thing about what Jonathan's saying, I do agree, everything is solid, right? We talked about it pre-season on the show that we think that East Carolina usually loses a game they have no business losing and wins a game they have no business winning. This year doesn't feel like either one of those are going to happen. Is it probably still going to happen? Probably, right? But because they're so solid, it's like they should take care of business against everybody. The problem is I don't think they've got like any major strengths that are going to like push them against teams they probably had no business beating. Not saying anybody coming up is teams they have no business beating. BYU is going to be tough. But I'm with you, Steven. The tough thing is if these games don't go your way, how do you bounce back? And you've got an easier schedule right after
Charlotte.
Charlotte, Tulsa, Temple, or I think your next 3 games in there. And sounds right. Yeah.
Tulsa, Charlotte, Temple. In that order.
Yeah, and then it's what's their names? UTSA and Memphis are after that. It's Memphis and UTSA. So, I think you learned a lot about yourself because you need to be in every single one of these football games. I think in a perfect world, well, it wouldn't be a perfect world, you go 3-0 and kick everybody's tail. If you can be in all 3 of these games and you can win 2 of them,
you're 4-2 after 6 games. I think you're feeling great.
Yeah, I think even if you're 3-3, as long as you're in all 3 games, if it's one of those where like you're in it against Army and they find a way to bleed the clock out at the end because it's Army, and it's like, well, dang, it is what it is. But then you go to Tulane and can pull out a 10-point victory or so, 14-point victory. You're feeling fine to think about the 3-game stretch as long as BYU didn't come in here and wallop you by 40.
Bruce Willis says, lit. Their student body was lit by the third quarter somewhere, just not at the game. He says, Chanticleer out. That's pretty good.
That's good. I like it.
Bruce Willis, a.k.a. if you follow the Hoist the Colors message boards, that is Buck Wild, who's our craziest poster. He also has a post about how BYU is the best team in America. So he's on one end of the spectrum or the other typically. He's all in on BYU. We'll find out more this Saturday. All right, we asked the question at the press conference that Shane is asking, but Shane wants to know, do we know what happened on the early 4th down call when we ran the punt team off quickly? Harold looked to be really upset. We had to give them time to substitute. Did I miss something? All right, so I asked this at the press conference. I was scared I was going to forget about it because it was kind of an obscure play in the game by the end of it. But Blake said that essentially, what did he see? He saw this in the Georgia-Notre Dame game last year in the playoffs.
In the playoff, yeah.
And essentially they were trying to execute it. What happened was ECU lined up to go for it. Coastal takes a timeout. Then East Carolina sends his punt team on the field after the timeout. And then as soon as they blow the play clock, special teams runs off, offense runs back on. Now, by the letter of the law, referees have to give the defense ample time to substitute. But
reasonable time to sub, not ample. Reasonable.
The
rail book says ample. Reasonable.
23 seconds, I think is what Blake said when the offense ran on the field on the play clock. And he said that he had checked with the officials in the preseason and that he was told that there had to be 18 seconds on the play clock. I think I'm remembering this correctly.
Yes, he said 18, and that should give them a good enough, a reasonable amount of time to snap the ball.
But what happened was Coastal ran, they were so unexpected. They were not expecting this at all. So they ran their first defense on the field, and then there were like some stragglers. So they basically substituted 2 different times, and the referee wouldn't let them snap it. So
there was a second group. There were 3 guys the second time that ran on the field. Those guys should not have been allowed to
The referees blew this.
Yeah, they do. They did. And that's the problem. I think I get they're trying not to just have like Aaron Rodgers 12 men on the field situations where teams just benefit from it, but also like you got to make an effort to sub somewhat right away. Like any guy who might get in the game should be standing on the sideline next to a coach ready to go in the game. Like this is something that needs to be talked about amongst, I don't think just the leagues. I think this is something the NCAA and the NFL need to come together to just kind of be, okay, how are we going to handle this? Let's get a universal football rule out there. 15 seconds. Universal. You got 15. And the white hat referee needs to look at the darn play clock the second the offense finishes subbing. Go, okay, it's at 23. That means they got till 8. And at 8, regardless of what the defense is doing, he looks at the umpire and says, "You're back to your spot."
And to me, this is great coaching by ECU that was not allowed to result in a first down, because it should have been either a penalty or ECU should have been able to snap the ball with them out of place. Yeah, so, I mean, it's unfortunate that the referees, which, by the way, can you guess what conference they're from? The American.
The American.
Did not execute their part of the job. And so here we are. Thankfully, it didn't cost ECU. Jones Bones says, I want to see more Lacey and Engelman. Well, Lacey unfortunately got injured. Asked about that as well, and he was on crutches and a knee brace after the game. Blake said they'll find out more in the coming days, but hoping for the best for DeJuan Lacey. So somebody wants to know, why didn't we see more Marlon Gunn? That was also asked at the press conference. It was a good press conference today, I thought.
I thought
about
it was,
all involved.
yeah.
Marlon, it just wasn't his week. They wanted to go with the other backs, but Blake said that they will have a game Marlon steps up. So still not really having a running back one at this point, I would say, for ECU.
Yeah, it's like that can be viewed one of two ways. I think if there's any position where it's like you're okay not having a true number one, it's probably running back, right? But also you want a guy that you can go to in that situation. Hey, it's 3rd and 5. We're up by 4. We need the first down right now. Who's the guy that we trust to get 5 yards to ice the game? 4-minute offense situation. So that part's unfortunate, but I do think, all 3 guys, they're a little different, but they can do everything, right? They can pass pro. They can run the ball. They do have some speed. Yes, some of those guys are faster accelerating than others, right? Like London's the fastest. Marlon's the slowest. Jenkins kind of in the middle. So, it's a little, I guess, I don't know if I'd use the word frustrating. It's just a little unreassuring, but I think overall it's still a really good group. It's deep. TJ was mentioned about there. I think TJ's a good back too. Yeah, look, and the thing is, and Blake kind of alluded to it too, he didn't only say it wasn't Marlon's night, but he said he felt like those two had the hot hand and you just didn't want to quit feeding them. So, that's how running back goes sometimes. Not every running back has LaDainian Tomlinson in it where it's just like, hey, you got a true number one and then there's everybody else. Sometimes you got to do this thing by committee and it is what it is. And as long as you can be consistent, who really cares at the end of the day, right? If whether there's one guy or there's 3.
And maybe you just keep feeding the rock. Somebody has their moment.
Yeah.
In a game like BYU, and then you kind of have your number one guy from there. So we'll see how it plays out. Let's get our final break in. We got a few more questions to address on the other side in our final segment. This is Hoist the Colors on a Reaction Monday.
It's time to soak up the savings at Greenville Toyota. Summer is here with hot deals on a great selection of new Toyotas, like a Corolla, $189 a month, or Tacoma, $279 a month. Soak up the savings at Greenville Toyota.
You know what the problem is with standard belts? Usually you have to choose between too tight or the opposite, too loose. But with Anson Belt and Buckle, you don't have to choose. We got rid of the holes and instead have a track system designed for micro-adjustability. That way you can enjoy a perfect fit every time. Anson Belt and Buckle. Find your perfect fit today.
Daughtridge Gas and Oil has been your dependable propane supplier for 95 years. Their trained technicians can service and properly install all your propane and natural gas appliances. Plus, Daughtridge Gas and Oil is your backyard expert with fire pits, grills, smokers, and more, including quality outdoor furniture at their Greenville Patio and Hearth Shop at 1901 Charles Boulevard. Go by and see the knowledgeable staff at Daughtridge Gas and Oil for propane delivery or call 756-1345.
Other restaurants claim their food is fresh and fast, but are they friendly? At Moore's, you're treated like family the minute you walk into their doors. With locations in Winterville, New Bern, Swansboro, Morehead City, and Jacksonville. We've been practicing what we preach since 1945. At Moore's, our barbecue is slow cooked and smoked over real wood daily until it's so tender it's falling off the bone. Combined with our fresh chicken, cooked-to-order seafood, and homemade fixins, we're sure you'll agree. If it's not Moore's, it's less.
My hair is definitely a reflection of who I am. Wild, fun, fiery for sure.
It just goes with the flow.
Me and my hair, both untamable.
I wear it how I feel.
Feel fearless.
Feel empowered. Look fantastic.
Look fantastic.
Look fantastic.
Feel unstoppable.
Unstoppable.
The sun is out, and so are the deals at Greenville Toyota. Soak up the savings on a hot selection of new Toyotas, like a Camry, $229 a month, or RAV4, $289 a month. Soak up the savings at Greenville Toyota.
Loyal and bold, we're the purple and golds.
Yo ho ho!
And we're back to Hoist the Colors with Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game.
All right, welcome back in. Hoist the Colors, final segment here. Reaction Monday. Philip Pilkington alongside Stephen Igo here. Great chat today. Great interaction. Trying to get to as many of these comments as possible. Jonathan says, some of our backs seem to lack vision. Jenkins seems to lack the ability to make cuts. I was pleasantly surprised by Lacey and Engelman. I will say TJ Engelman, every time I've seen him in scrimmages, the consistent thing he does is make guys miss. Now, he has to improve in pass pro and in receiving. But like he's not a burner. He's just shifty, and I wouldn't mind seeing more Engelman as well. And then obviously the disappointing injury with Lacey potentially hurts because I think he had a chance to be a one-cut-and-go type runner as well, which ECU I think is kind of lacking right now. All right, we had a question from Johnny Stats, which I think is fair discussion. He says, wasn't clock management at the end of the first half a bit puzzling? And I had this debate with James Giglio, Hoist the Colors intern. He will join us Wednesday. He thought ECU was being too conservative. I can see both sides. So here's the situation. You're up 10-0. ECU calls timeout with 59 seconds to go to get the ball back. Coastal's at their own 24. They get off a 47-yard punt to the ECU 29. It's returned for 1 yard to the 30. But you get a block in the back. So it's a 10-yard penalty. You're starting at your own 20 with 52 seconds to go in a 10-0 game. You did have, I think, all three timeouts. ECU runs it.
Two, because you just burned one.
Two, there you go. ECU runs it for 3 yards, and they throw a little screen pass to Anthony Smith for no yards. Then they ran the clock out, basically with a run from there. So my point of view here is without the block in the back penalty, I think you play this much differently. There's a big difference between starting at your own 30 and your own 20 with that much time left. Last thing you want to do is give Coastal the football. They had timeouts left. If you throw 3 incomplete passes, they could potentially drive down. You turn it over. You're giving them points. You're giving them momentum. They get the ball first in the second half. So they kind of played it safe there, and I think it was the right call. But I understand ECU is throwing the ball well. I understand people wanting to take a shot there. It's just you do have to be careful, especially after the penalty in that situation.
I think you be careful, too, because you've dominated – well, I mean, not dominated, but you've really controlled the first half, but you're only up by 10.
Yep.
You know, I think maybe if you're up by 17, you're really trying to push it and kind of put the nail in the coffin. But, yeah, I mean, God forbid, let's just say, hey, they weren't going to take like a big shot on the first play. But we were talking about it in the break. Let's say instead of a run and a screen, they still hope to get something quick and then something get upfield. So you call like a little drive route or a mesh concept. Well, those are plays that are high percentage completion, but they take a little long to develop. Let's say you take a sack. Okay, well, now you're at like the minus 14. They take a timeout. Then you try and run the clock out. Well, all of a sudden your punter, when he goes to punt, is standing at like his own 7. Let's say he punts it to the 50. They have one timeout, 40-some seconds, even 30-some seconds, and, all they need is 20 yards to get in field goal range. It's very easy to hit that field goal. It's a lot different. Like you said, if you're at the 30 or Coastal doesn't have all their timeouts. I mean, I think it was just a perfect storm of all those things. Or even if Coastal doesn't get the ball to start the second half. Any of those things, I think you play a little more aggressive with it. A combination of those three, a lot more could go wrong than could go right. So it is what it is. I will say I grew up watching more NFL than college. I tend to have a conservative mindset when it comes to going 4 on 4th down, going for 2, these kinds of things, clock management. So that's part of it too. But, yeah, I see both sides.
All right, final minute here. We had a question. Does BYU and Army having a bye affect the Pirates? Robert adds, I'm thinking BYU not playing so early in the season can make them get off to a slow start. I feel like a bye this early in the season, Philip, is kind of a disadvantage. I mean, I guess we'll find out. for sure this Saturday. But like, if I'm Blake kind of said it best. Like, if you're a team trying to improve week by week around the season, just taking a week off after you really have not been tested at all, is that a good thing? I guess we'll know Saturday night.
Yeah, the thing is, I think if BYU had played like horrendously and they needed time to like regroup, then it would be good. But like you said, you're trying to they've played good and they're trying to improve week to week. They're trying to get better. They're not where they want to be. So I think it could be a disadvantage. I guess the one advantage is though they are coming across the country, so it's not it's not hurting their travel or it's helping their travel. But yeah, I think it can be brought both ways. But I'd lean disadvantage for them.
We'll see how it plays out. We'll get into more BYU throughout the week. Plenty of time to preview that one. I know we got some questions. Will it be a sellout? I'll do some homework there. I know it is trending towards being a near-capacity game early in the week. Hopefully we have an update soon. Should be an awesome week. Join us every day, noon. We'll be with Kaysen Romeli tomorrow. He was in Conway with us covering the game. We'll get into that and more with Kaysen on Tuesday's show. This has been Hoist the Colors. We'll